Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I'm Robert Haynes, your host and your guide into the world of TSM's LCS team. And I hope that you guys enjoyed last week's 100A, 100B, Part 1, Part 2 episodes with Ben and Tim. It was such a great way to celebrate with them, and I just genuinely had a blast. They're such good guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed our power rankings. Quick little plug here. I do have a new show coming out on Tuesday with a very certain someone that I think you guys will be excited about. It's called Hot Takes, and it is with I Am Germ, yes, from Twitter, from YouTube, where we give hot takes pretty much all the time, but they're not hot takes without just being hot takes. There are, I don't know, some penalties, some punishments for being wrong with your hot takes. So make sure you check that out. It'll be going live for the first time on Tuesday, the day after this podcast comes out, over at the Game House's YouTube channel. I will look forward to all of the comments on all of our takes. I am personally very excited for, well, all that it entails. So go check that out. We've got one more show as well coming out with myself, where I will be talking about just League as a whole with an old friend, Mike Termini, and that one's called Heartstuck Gold. That one will be coming out on Wednesday. So for those of you who like LCS content, for those of you who like League of Legends content specifically, the Game House will now be bringing you new podcasts, new shows, Monday through Thursday, starting with this show, because guess what? We are back. The LCS is only a week away, about a week away from the recording of this show, and that means that, yes, last week wasn't the only time we're getting 2 episodes. We now have 2 episodes every single week. I'm excited. Now, obviously, we don't have any gameplay really to talk about in terms of the main team, but TSM Academy did play this week, so we're going to go into that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the decisions being made at support, and, well, to start us off for the day, I want to talk a little bit about Parth and his comments on Twitter, because, well, I thought it was interesting what he had to say, and I want to kind of just take you all through the situation and kind of where my headspace is at with it. So, there was, on June 7th, so a couple of days ago, Parth goes in saying, going into the summer LCS, I think this is the closest the top 5 teams have been. Each of these teams needs something different to succeed, and coaching staff/org are going to play a huge role in who makes it to Worlds. At Jason_Q on Twitter asked which 5 teams. Here are the 5 teams that he listed. In no particular order. It looks like he did it actually in alphabetical order to make it even better. 100 Thieves, C9, EG, TL, and TSM. Jason asked, is TSM is a top 5 team? He said, no question. Jason responded, sorry, don't want to come across as rude, but expecting a 10th place team, we finished 9th, come on guys, to be above average all of a sudden with the addition of Maple is a bit unbelievable. Good luck for TSM, they probably need it. Now, we go into a thread that I think is good and bad for us as TSM fans, okay? For starters here, he starts, this is what looks like a four-parter-ish? Yeah. I'm going to read this all to you. You guys can find it on Twitter. Parthenon, Parthenan on Twitter. And he says, Parth says, TSM was 10th in the spring because of a massive operational leadership transition, not a reflection of player skill. Now, again, we finished 9th, so come on now, guys, let's go here. And he said, I heard about things that happened in spring behind the scenes that made Echo Fox sound competent in comparison. They will find their footing and will be fine long term. He then goes on to state, 2, TL were ninth place in 2020. They replaced Doublelift with a rookie and went to Worlds. TSM was sixth place regular season spring 2016. Sorry, I thought something was about to fall. Okay. And replacing Yellowstar with Biofrost created one of the most dominant teams in LCS history next split. Small changes can lead to big things. 3, Maple is an incredible player with a skill level and historical success comparable to Bjergsen and Jensen. While I don't think he is the right long-term play, unless Spica resigns, he's the perfect veteran to unlock Spica and accommodate Shenyi if integrated well. All in all, based on the players on the roster, TSM should be comfortably top 5. Their biggest challenge is integrating the players and staff, the role clarity both in and out of games. To contend for a World Such title, they honestly need to get a little lucky with the meta. Now, that's a lot, okay? There's a lot there. So I kind of want to go from the beginning. I think he is absolutely right. You heard it in my power rankings last week. I do believe TSM are a top 5 team heading in, and I feel pretty confident to say they will finish top 10. Or top 5. Top 10. They're obviously going to finish top 10. What I also agree with is the beginning part of this. It's a massive operational/leadership transition, not a reflection of player skill. I personally agree with that. I think we saw that by the end. I think TSM, at a minimum, should have finished something like 7-11, right? Not just for the 7-11 memes, but because of the fact that, I think that would have been pretty reasonable for them, honestly, which, would have put them, where would that put us here? 1 second, let me check. That would have put us at 7-11. That would have put us, it would have only moved us up 1 spot. We would have won 2 extra games, essentially, but, whatever. And I guess they can say 10th because we technically tied for 10th, but we won the tiebreaker. Regardless. The thing that I find interesting is I heard about things that happened in spring behind the scenes that made Echo Fox sound competent in comparison. They will find their footing and be fine long term. Now, I think Parth is a very reasonable person, right? And, the one thing I wish Parth would say is that part of this is his responsibility, right? Like, it was partially on him. Now, maybe he says it later, or maybe he said it before and I missed it, and so I'm not going to call him out completely on it, but I wish at least in this, he talks about the leadership transition. It's not a reflection of player skill. To me, right, if we parse that means in his mind, he really believes the talent that they brought in, that he helped bring in, was not the problem. It was the transfer of leadership, right? And he goes on to make, Echo Fox sound competent in comparison. We all know what happened with Echo Fox. I wonder who he is referring to. I wonder if he and Andy really are on the outs. It just makes that part makes it interesting. But then he says they will find their footing and be fine long term. I think that is because he believes in our boy Dominic Callis. I believe that he believes that they are making the right choices. I'll talk about Dominic here a little bit later, but I find that part to be him almost patting himself on the back to a certain degree, but also then stating that, in terms of the player skill, the talent was there for sure, right? Maybe. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I saw it from the beginning, but it didn't pan out that way, and I don't think you can necessarily put that just on the transitions. I think, it was partially on him to make sure these players got in earlier. They didn't, I mean, there's things that he couldn't control, obviously, but like, it almost makes me wonder if he's going all the way back to the stuff with Bjergsen and him leaving and them being in a bad spot, and then the Peter Zhang stuff. I just wish that Parth would have stayed. I think he would have helped this team a lot. and he doesn't have to be the head coach, but he could have been, I don't know, I think very helpful to allowing the transition of power. I still think it was obviously a personal, and I'm sure he felt like he needed to do it, move to leave the team. And it's not that he owes TSM anything, because he has given them a lot of good years. But boy, him leaving really did not help the transition of power. He could have stayed and I think made that a lot easier, but I don't think he wanted the stress of it. And that's his choice. That's fine. But it definitely was detrimental to his team. And I don't think he takes responsibility for that, which is, again, fine. But I do think he should have pointed that out. I think his second part here about the small changes, making a difference. The one argument I will have is even in 2020 and in 2016, the LCS was not as good. There were, I think one change could matter a lot more than people would think. That's not to say that TSM can't make massive improvements with Maple. But I genuinely believe that the LCS is better than it has, ever been. From top to bottom, I think that even our 10th place teams are better than half the teams were in the past. And that might include 2020. I'd have to go back and look at the rosters, but I have CLG at 10th, and I even think a team of Dokla, Contracts, Palafox, Luger, and Poom could probably beat some of those, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place teams back in the past. So the LCS is leveling up. I don't know if it's as easy as you make one change and things get better. Obviously, TSM are hoping that will be the case, although they've ended up making another change since even his tweets. But it is interesting to see. He then goes on and he talks about how Maple is incredible. He is going to be able to basically push Bjergsen and Jensen and in terms of skill. We've already seen it, right? I'm not going to gush too much over Maple on this episode, but everybody on Reddit's losing their minds. He has looked really, really, really good already in Champions Queue and in solo queue. Like, he looks comfortable. He looks like he's going to come in with a lot of confidence. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, he is such a massive upgrade over Takeover, who looked good this weekend, by the way, but it's not comparable, guys. I mean, I'm sorry. Maple is just that much better. Like, I think Maple is probably the minimum the 4th best LCS mid laner, and if he's playing at his best, I think he is pushing Bjergsen for 1 and 2. I think they're kind of right there next to each other. So I love that. I'm glad to hear that he feels that way, because, again, at this point, like, his boy Bjergsen is gone. I think he probably loves Huni and Spica and wants them to do well, and even tactical, because he was there before. But he doesn't really know Maple. He doesn't really know Shenyi all that well either, even though he helped recruit him. Like, there's no benefit for Parth to be anything but honest here about his assessment of Maple. And I think everybody is saying this. Like, Maple's good, so that's great, right? Maybe we need to get a little maple syrup up here, and we'll take a shot of maple syrup or something every time that he helps us get a dub. That'd actually be fun. If you guys would like something like that, let me know in the comments section below. I kind of want to make these a little bit more interactive in that way, so let me know. But I don't think he's the right long-term play unless Spica resigns. He is the perfect veteran to unlock Spica and accommodate Shenyi if integrated well. That's what's interesting to me. Out of all of this, that is what intrigues me the most. Even he, and to me, it sounds like he is not anticipating Spica re-signing. Because otherwise he would say, I think it's a great long-term play. Right? He wouldn't put in unless Spica resigns. I don't know that Spica's going to want to. But I do agree with the fact that he's the perfect veteran to unlock Spica and accommodate Shenyi. I couldn't agree more. I still think, and I still feel this way, as much as I do enjoy Maple, I still think that Niski would have been better for the team overall. But I'm very, very excited to eat those words if Parth is right. But this, to me, guys, and this is what we're going to discuss right now, is we're back on that is Spica, even Shenyi, actually, at this point. Who is going to stay on this team? Is Maple going to be the guy that TSM builds around for the next year or two? how do you set yourself up for the future? Because I think 100 Thieves, C9, and EG have all laid out that plan. Now, we are at a critical juncture here where we can either go the route of those three teams I just mentioned, or where you get young talent, you kind of build everything up, or you go the route of Team Liquid where you just buy your talent. In the past, I would have said TSM are going to do the TL. They're just going to continue to buy good talent. They'll find a way, to pay for all of it. Now I'm not so sure. And this is where it comes back to Dominic Callis and everything else that is talked about here with Parth. The massive operational transition, as much as leadership, is what is important here. TSM are making changes across the board. And everybody's like, oh, they're losing people. I'm starting to think that maybe they know what they're doing. As stupid as that sounds. Guys, we have to remember something. There is an esports bubble, and it's going to be popping soon. These teams, from what I'm hearing, are struggling to get VC dollars. This is something that, I can't remember who it was. Somebody on Twitter was putting this out there, and Jacob Wolf was supporting it similarly. But yeah, the VC dollars aren't flowing. The investments into esports right now aren't there for the prices that these teams and players and everything and organizations are wanting. The reason for that is because a lot of people don't really know if they believe in what is going on next. I don't know that I can blame them right now. A lot of these valuations were tough. There were some teams that were valued at 33 times their revenue. That is almost impossible numbers to anticipate and be able to do anything with, right? Because you just don't know. What I believe TSM are doing is they're setting up for this where you have to be able to at least make enough money as an organization to survive. There are teams that are in the LCS right now that will not be in the LCS in the next year or two because they will have to sell because their organization may no longer exist. How many of those teams are going to have that happen? I don't know. I think CLG is the most likely one at this point. I can't imagine that they're getting any offers for VC dollars. Just saying. I think Immortals could be in that realm. I don't know for sure. They just made, obviously, their big move to the Midwest, so maybe not. That would be great for them. Golden Guardians are building a brand new facility, so maybe they're pretty safe. But for TSM, right, as this is a show about TSM, they're making all these moves, and they're either re-signing or not re-signing basically everybody at this point. Again, I know that sounds dumb, but I mean, like, we're literally seeing an unprecedented level of people leaving or, the Rainbow Six team getting re-signed. I'm sure to contracts that are very favorable to TSM for the future. I think TSM is just looking at this as an opportunity to kind of rebalance their books, right, in terms of financially. And a lot of these teams are going to have to, and these orgs are going to have to look at that in the future. So I think this change in operations and internal thinking is going to lead TSM, and I think we're already seeing it a little bit, down the road of let's get young talent to fill these positions. Let's get young talent to build around. And, I think to Parth's point, I don't think Maple's that guy. I think Maple's here this split and probably next year as TSM start to really change up how their LCS team works. I think it's going to be for the good, but the fact that we, even with this, Parth says all in all, right, based on the players on the roster, TSM should comfortably be fifth. The biggest challenge is going to be staff and role of clarity, both in and out of game. I think Maple's going to add to that. To contend for a world style, they honestly need to get a little lucky with the meta. I don't know that that's necessarily true. And not a Worlds title, a Worlds / an LCS title. Now, I think he's right in terms of actually winning the LCS. That part I agree with. Going to Worlds, I don't know that they need to be lucky in terms of meta. I think they need to be lucky in terms of, well, not even lucky. I think they need to show that they can beat, the not top two teams of EG and TL. I think they just need to be able to beat everybody else. and then maybe get lucky against EG and TL. My point is there's a lot of change. It's great. I love what Parth put out there. I think it's very real. I think it is absolutely worth talking about. But there are already changes that are being made, and TSM have gone out and decided that this week, or the latter part of this past week, Shenyi and Mia would be flip-flopped. Now, when we're talking about the future of this org and everything, to me it seems like Shenyi is probably not a part of that at this point. If they're really doing this, he must just be too much of a problem maybe or something. I don't know. But his ceiling is so much higher than Mia's. I just don't understand this move. And when we're looking again at what Parth has to say, they are comfortably fifth. I think even with Mia coming in, because I actually don't think Mia's that bad now. But if we're looking at the future, which is what we need to be doing, we now have to question, even with this move, unless if they're doing it to be sneaky and get him time with Instinct, because they believe that Soul, Instinct, and Shenyi are their three guys that they're going to start this team around, and then they're going to find a new jungler and they're going to find a new mid laner in the next year or so to build that team that they want it to be. It's the only thing that could make sense to me right now, if it's not the fact that Shenyi is struggling to work with Tactical. Maybe Tactical's being a bit of a drama queen. I don't know. But the move that was made and the way it was explained as well was odd. Odd to say the least. Because we have Glenn coming out here stating, they did in-house tryouts, mixed up all 10 players. Mia's performance was amazing, stable. Stability is the number one goal, right? When we were number one, it meant, that this is the team needs stability. Okay, it's not just player skill, it's stability. Okay, sounds like you're compensating for something there. You're trying to ride this stability thing a little more, right? Shenyi then was also able to really learn more and was able to be more aggressive and lead the team, right? He talks about how Shenyi was able to help them close out the game in his second game against FlyQuest Academy. Looking at solo queue and champions queue, Mia has been one of the top players, while in solo queue and champions queue scrims, he said Shenyi was facing a relative slump right now. I think both players are very good, but we want to give the player who is in really good form right now a chance to play with the LCS main team. Now, this doesn't mean that Shenyi isn't going to play on game day, but what this does mean is that there are issues that are happening. This is cover-up to me at least a little bit. I believe that they're probably right. Mia, it does provide at least a little more stability, but that stability doesn't mean that his ability is higher than Shenyi's floor. So I don't know about that one. I also don't know about the fact that you're basing it off of solo queue and champions queue from Mia and the slump that Shenyi was in. Who cares? It's about internal scrims. And if you're having all 10 of them play against each other and Shenyi's is going to be better for the future, right? If that's really their case, is that we are trying to make Shenyi better for the future, then fine. But then why even sign Maple? Why even go with this team? Why not just sell out and go young and find the best young talent that you possibly can from around the world? Maybe that's what they're going to do this summer. I don't know. But this brings a lot of questions to me. And it brings a lot of questions about Shenyi's future. It brings a lot of questions about Spica's future, right, which we just talked about. There are questions to be had with a move like this. Now, that being said, I will tell you this much. From the games that I watched for Mia, he looked pretty freaking good. I did not have too much of an issue with the way that this young man played. Okay, I'm old now. I'm just hit my first year of 30s, so I can say at least young man maybe. But yeah, he looked good. I liked what he brought. I think he brought a better lane presence. I think he knew what he wanted to do. I think his team fighting was solid. And maybe this will end up being one of the big-brained NA picks, TSM picks ever, right? I mean, truly ever. I don't know if I believe that, but it could be, right? So with that, I look and I say, all right, well then how did the Academy team do this weekend, which is the team that finally got to play? And I can already tell you they looked, well, pretty darn good. They went 1-1-1, 1-1, tied 1 and lost 1. And most importantly, and of course the games that I didn't see yet, TSM were able to split with FlyQuest. Now, why this is important is because up until that last game, FlyQuest hadn't lost a game yet. FlyQuest Academy has been looking, well, pretty darn good. And when we go back and we look at the spring season, FlyQuest were not great. I forgot about that. They weren't that good. It was CLG Academy that was pretty good. But regardless, the NA Academy scene was seeing with FlyQuest with, I believe they have a lot of new pieces, or at least some new pieces. Actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. They didn't really add anybody. Well, whatever. They're playing well. They went 5-0 in their first games, including beating 100 Thieves 2-0 and beating C9 Academy 2-0. Both teams that 100 Thieves has, the tenacity, will. I don't know if I really like BMFX, but on our old friend Sword as well. That's a pretty solid team there. And then C9 Academy, which has a lot of movement, but Alorum Shaden, I know a good jungler who had gotten banned. Now he's back. Copy, Wixie, and Trevor, who looked pretty solid. And even with the changes that they're having, understandable that they lost, but they have a lot of talent on that team. And I think this was a good start for TSM Academy. I mean, I can't really complain. And I think that Mia looked solid. I mean, in his first 4 games, he had 40 assists. And his kill participation was near 70, which is good. His wards placed were fine, and he, didn't necessarily help lane too much. Shenyi was much better in lane than Mia, but at least statistically. But, there were a lot of goods to come out of this team, and Mia seemed to be one of them. So if Shenyi is going to feel more comfortable being down here, I mean, he goes 4-7-37 with almost a 6 KDA in his first game with almost 80 kill participation. I mean, I can't imagine that this Mia thing is going to last very long. I think they just want to see, and if it works because it makes tactical better, then great. If not, then Shenyi is clearly the future, even when just looking at these stats. But the other people, I should say, on this team looked really freaking good. Hyper, when he didn't get his Lee Sin, wasn't anything to write home about. When he played his Lee Sin, he's really good, but everything else he was okay with. But everybody else, Instinct finally looked a little bit more like what we were hoping for. Maybe it was the Mia Shenyi combo. I don't know. Takeover looked really freaking good. I mean, really good. His laning was solid. I mean, you could tell he had learned from his experiences in the LCS. Then the last one, Soul, also formerly known as Anime Girl, looked absolutely nutty. His laning stats are solid, positives in everything across the board. 5 OKDA, 32 kills, the most on the team. 15 deaths, tied for the second least amongst, all the players that actually played any significant amount of games. 43 assists, and this guy was going toe-to-toe in his first games against, everybody. I mean, good Lord. I mean, C9 Academy, right? He's going up against a Lorem, somebody who has played for a long time. That's great, right? Then who did we play again? I forget. Then we played against Dignitas Academy. We didn't look great as a team, but he still looked fine against Tony Top, who, at one point especially was a pretty top-tier top laner. And then against FlyQuest Academy, Philip, who is absolutely a top-level Academy top laner, he played really well as well. For his first games, for his first split with, I believe, an Academy team, if I remember correctly, Soul looked pretty good. And it makes me excited about the future because if he continues to play well, there's a chance he gets some playing time later on down the road if this team is not in contention. I hope they are because I do love Huni and you guys all know that, but I was very happy. This team looked so much cleaner. Their comms were better, clearly. They were moving around the map better, clearly. They were taking objectives right. Their objective fighting was better. And there's a little guy named X Smithy coaching this team, and I have to wonder, for a team that struggled as much as they did in the spring season, they went, what was it? They went 13-23 to go, what was it? To go 3-3 to start. I can't really complain. Now, they'll run into some tough competition. They'll have to play, some of the top teams again. They already played the number one team currently, which is FlyQuest Academy. But, they'll have to play CLG and Dignitas and Team Liquid. But, well, they already played Dignitas. So they'll have to play Team Liquid, and CLG, the other two top teams. And all I can think of right now, guys, is dang, this team, there's a future for TSM. There is a world where they cut everybody and they just start over with Soul, Instinct, and Shenyi. And if they communicated that with Shenyi, hey, our goal is to get you more time with Instinct for the future and allow Mia to have his chance to help this team, then great. If they're doing it because they're worried about his future, then not so great. But the beginning of this was good. I am pleased to see what happened with this team. I am pleased to see their stats. I'm pleased to see the champions that they were picking, the cohesion already. And it also makes me excited to see if X Smithy is going to be a really good coach. I hope TSM keep him around and move him up at some point, potentially, if Chawi doesn't figure it out. There's a lot to like about our future right now. There are growing pains that are going to happen, and I think we will probably have had the worst split ever for a while last split. I just have this feeling that TSM are setting up really well for the future. And that is what really matters to me when we're looking at everything going forward. So, I don't know. I am very interested to see what's going to happen this weekend. And I'm very interested to see who's going to play. Luckily for you, we are going to discuss that in the next episode, where we will go over TSM's, semi-easy schedule. I believe they have Evil Geniuses, Immortals, and CLG to start off, which could be great for this team or very bad if everything goes wrong. So I guess we're going to have to see. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for Thursday's episode. So make sure that you guys are keeping it here at the Game House so that you can, see all the cool stuff that's going on, and so that we can, get you all your new episodes here as soon as possible. There's a lot of new stuff coming out. So if you guys want content in the form of a podcast or in the form of a talk show every single day, essentially, except for every single weekday at least, then, make sure that you're checking us out. If you like this show, please Please take a second to like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss another episode of this and all the other stuff that we have coming out. Also, I want to make this the number one, well, continue to make it the number one TSM podcast on all podcasting platforms. Please leave a review and continue to support. It's greatly appreciated. You can share this with your friends, and you can find me at TGH Robert Haynes on Twitter or the Gamehouse at TGH Esports. Got some new content coming out on thegamehouse.com and potentially a little something else coming out at the beginning of January that you should be keeping your eye out for as well. With that, thank you for tuning in. We're heading into the regular season, everybody, so this show does come out every Monday and Thursday and is exclusively for your TSM ear holes. I'm Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. I'll see you all on Thursday.